the proposal in itself is kind of a sign of the growing maturity of the industry, right? It just has a good, bright light, at least for the future of the crypto industry, right? Involving kind of interconnected networks rather than these isolated silos and groups working together.
Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Wagmi TV. We have a little layer 2 versus layer 1 drama today in the Ethereum Solana world, so we're going to cover that. We have a little bit of back and forth between Vitalik and Anatoly, so we're going to kind of break that down and see what happened with that and kind of dive into, what some of the repercussions could be and in terms of what the projects want to do. But we're going to start there, and I think, Mata, we're kicking to you first.
Long story short, right, Anatoly Yakovenko, the co-founder of Solana Labs, basically proposed that Ethereum could be used as a layer 2 solution for Solana. So you heard that right. ETH being the layer 2 for Solana being the layer 1, right? The idea is this would allow Solana to benefit from Ethereum security and scalability while still maintaining its own speed and efficiency, right? So for those of you that aren't familiar, right, layer 2s solutions are a way to improve the scalability of blockchains without really sacrificing security. They do that by offloading a lot of the processing and transaction data to a separate layer, which can then be processed more efficiently, right? So Solana and Ethereum, they're both L1s. That we talk about a lot of L2s or layer 2s that are on Ethereum specifically. So I think one of the biggest responses to this has been, wouldn't it be the other way around, right? Where Solana would actually be the layer 2 for Ethereum here moving forward. I think, all of this is interesting and definitely something to think about, right? I think it'd be really cool to see kind of these two worlds move together, right? I think they've both solved pieces of the blockchain trilemma in different ways. Obviously have their own strengths, but of course, some have their weaknesses as well, right? Solana gets a lot of hits about security. Ethereum gets a lot of hits about speed and, of course, price tags when actually moving through and trying to make transactions on it, right? So bring these two together, right? That could be something that would be really, really cool for this. But I think it's really important to think about why this came about. So Vitalik actually put out a tweet not too long ago addressing kind of the SEC, right, and some of the things that they've been saying. And so it was really interesting. He basically was saying, look, I don't think that the way that this is going is good for the crypto market, right? He basically said he felt bad about Solana being targeted by the SEC. It's not how Ethereum should win out the market. It's not the real competition, right? It's not everything that's going to drive a really solid, healthy market and something that's going to be utilized. And he made an interesting point where it shouldn't be competition between chains, but rather a competition against the rapidly changing centralized world and the CBDC systems and everything like that. So he feels the SEC is kind of pitting these groups against each other. So I thought it was a couple interesting takes from that perspective, but anything that y'all want to add to that?
No, I mean, I think he makes a lot of good points there in what you just summarized. Like, I think the reason why that Solana is so interesting and why it's come about and gained so much popularity is because Ethereum exists, and we know that Ethereum has a security piece of everything down and has obviously been the incumbent, but Solana's been a lot faster, a lot easier to use on the NFT marketplaces, a lot easier to process transactions with in terms of transactions per second. And so I think it's interesting that he calls it out that they're going towards the same goal, even though they're competing, but that makes both of them better,
Yeah, I mean, do I understand it? Not really at all. But does it get me thinking about Solana in a time where they're kind of getting berated by the SEC and everybody else? Yeah, it does. So, yeah, I think in practice, it probably doesn't make a ton of sense. I agree with you, Mata. It feels like it would be the other way around. But, I mean, Anatoly got crypto Twitter talking. So hats off to him for being able to do that.
Yeah, I think another interesting takeaway I took from it, whether you agree with it or not, right, as you're kind of mentioning, Evan, the proposal in itself is kind of a sign of the growing maturity of the industry, right? It shows developers are willing to collaborate across different platforms in order to start to build better solutions for users, whether that be, of course, Solana being an L2 or Ethereum being an L2, etc. It just has a good bright light, at least for the future of the crypto industry, right? Involving kind of interconnected networks rather than these isolated silos and groups working together. So I thought it was interesting nonetheless. The only other news that came out of Ethereum recently was the ERC 7265. And so those of you not familiar with kind of this update, it would make a standard that would be possible for DeFi protocols to actually make a circuit breaker. So a circuit breaker is essentially used to stop stocks from trading on exchanges when they're crashing too fast, right? Think about like the melt up of like GameStop or, you know, some of these stocks that have been beaten down really, really hard over the last year or two. It's essentially that stop in trading that's allowed to be put in place, right? The purpose is, of course, to prevent hackers, prevent exploiters from draining funds from DeFi protocols, which we've seen countless times, right? It's supposed to be a solution to the hacks that have totaled over, 3 billion or so in losses over the last couple of years from a DeFi perspective. So, of course, this comes with a ton of criticism as well, right? It's not much different than a centralized counterpart is one of the things that a lot of groups have been saying. I think one interesting piece of it is that there is a call out that they don't have to apply it. That said, I could see, DeFi protocols just making this a standard if it's a possibility you're moving forward to protect themselves. But yeah, I thought that was an interesting update. Do you all have a side of that coin that you kind of back?
I kind of think that whatever gets more investment into DeFi protocols and more investment into crypto in general is a good move. I get the argument that it's more of like an attribute of a centralized exchange or a centralized entity to have something like that in place. But I think when it comes down to it, like we still crave security to some extent. And so if there's some way to kind of back the bottom floor of your potential investment, I think that could be interesting in terms of getting more funds and more responsibility out towards investors.
Yeah, but I don't think, this would be done by the individual investors. It would be done by the people that put together, these projects. And so I think we've seen enough rugs in our time in crypto where, you could see this being used poorly, whether it's, hey, we're allowing everybody to, the rug's being pulled, people are trying to get out, this functionality is put into place, and who knows where it goes from there. Are people allowed to get their investment out? Does it actually help that? Does it hurt in some other ways? So yeah, I think it's an interesting concept. I think it's a direction that Ethereum probably shouldn't go. There's a lot of other, improvement proposals out there that could be implemented rather than this. But yeah, pretty interesting. I think it's definitely a good idea to bring up and at least, battle test it against the community.
Yeah, I think that's always a good way to go about these, right? Kind of give it a little test run, see what the proof of concept looks like. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work, and let's get rid of it. If it does, great. It wouldn't be the first time we've talked about Ethereum, and it wouldn't be the first time a lot of groups have talked about Ethereum becoming more and more centralized, especially after this proof of stake move. So definitely not, I would say, the type of publicity they'd be looking for, but I feel like compared to the rest of the crypto industry, they've gotten some pretty good publicity thus far. Obviously seen with the initial intro and the news that we talked about with Solana as well. So
yeah, I think Charles Hoskinson has an awesome opportunity to come in here and say ETH is Cardano's layer 3. So I'm hoping he takes that opportunity. But yeah, thanks for bringing that stuff up, Mata.
Great points all around. Well, if you guys found this content interesting or helpful, please like, comment, and subscribe. We always love hearing from you guys and getting your takes on this. But thank you guys so much for watching, and we will see you on the next episode of Wagmi TV.